or.
I know I encouraged you to work through it, and I still want you to. But if you look on the back side of that study sheet, I was with about 160 other people from the Minnesota South District. We were down at the Best Practices for Ministry Conference a weekend or so ago. And one of the last presentations that I had a chance to go to was by David Kinnaman. Not David Kinnaman, we were just talking about David Kinnaman. By David Kim. And he was talking through John 17. And if you read that, I want you to pay attention when you go through that sheet. I want you to pay attention to John 17, verse 4. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this next week. But don't skip that over. That's what I'm telling you. I put it on the sheet for a reason, okay? So don't skip that one over. So why don't we have Serena come back up here? You guys, if you have questions, I'm going to put the mic back on the stand, or I can even walk it back to you where you are. And if you have questions for her, one of the things that I encouraged her to do is to help you guys see that there's a young person in your life that you can speak that word to and say, you should really go talk with her, or you should go explore this. Her story is not all that unusual. For so many people that are in meaningful ministry, somebody in their life took the time to pull them to the side and say, have you ever thought of this? You ever considered this? This is something I think God might have gifted you for. And even if they hide it in their hearts, it's worth encouraging them. So I'll hold the mic here. If you guys have a question, raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic. And
let's actually keep it in the front, okay. So that way the camera will be able to pick up both her and them. Yeah, because there are people actually watching online.
Awesome. Okay.
You want to step
Excellent.
to the center, Serena?
Yeah.
Then we'll be able to see you too.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see if this is working.
I can definitely do that.
Test.
Yeah.
Our group had a question for you.
Yes.
We were really intrigued as you were talking about one of the things that you do with these young people is you share with them strategies for sharing the faith with non-believers in a way that's not preachy and forward and conversation starters and things like that. Can you give us some of the ideas that you share with them? Because we're guessing that some of those things apply across the board and across different demographics and people groups and all that.
Yes.
And ages and all that.
Yeah,
So maybe just share with us some of the strategies and things that you think of.
Yeah, absolutely. So in regards to the spiritual discussions for non-religious, which I talked about earlier, what we did at training in, we took some real life topics and then we put them in ways to cause provoking conversations. So I'll use two examples from that. One of the examples we used was, do you believe in ghosts? And it was like, because what you see in our nation today is that the spiritual realm is so glamorized through Hollywood. They've got all the horror movies, the psychological thrillers, and it's made to look really, really cool, right? So we've got our generation, our next generation coming up. The gentleman and I were talking about it over there, where it's like you can literally see a manifestation and a playing out of 2 Corinthians 4:4, which it says, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers. Because when it's presented in such a tasteful or provocative or attractive way, our young generation is not looking at this as this is trying to actually blind me for what's really happening in my life. It's trying to blind me from seeing that I was created on this earth not to just fit in, but I was created to thrive and be who God has called me to be. So that's one of the things we use. And then another topic that we've often used is, what do you think happens after we die? And in that, there's been a research and a discussion that no matter what people group on this earth, everybody thinks of something happening after we die, And so interestingly enough, you'll find some people that say, oh, well, this just ceased to exist, or I'm absorbed into the earth, or different things like that. But everyone wants to belong and everyone wants to find an answer. So that's how we start to stir up those conversations and help people to understand, how can you approach that in a way with a peer of yours that maybe has never heard the gospel? Because you don't want to just throw a fire hose on them, and this is who God's called you to be, and this is what I just want you to understand. And they're just going to be like, whoa, which we've seen happen. But it's more of yeah, exactly. It's more of a way of giving them an opportunity to really wrestle with it on their own, right? You know, Paul talks about how he planted and Apollos watered, but it's God who gets the increase. Neither the one who planted nor the one who watered actually is of anything. It's God who does a heart change in an individual. So we cannot go with the mindset when we approach an individual who doesn't know about Jesus, have never heard, or maybe it's been presented in such a tainted way to make them think it's just a list of do's and don'ts. It's of, I got to be good enough first. We want to approach them with a love and an understanding of, actually, Jesus said, come just as you are. He didn't say, cross off the perfect list and then come to me. Come just as you are. And it's amazing when that happens, just a shift in a person's heart and spirit, and then that allows God to work on them, you know? And then he will use us continually in what's called a discipleship relationship. And we began to talk about that. I mentioned it earlier. That's when an individual meets a follower of Christ, not necessarily when they first come into a church. And so those are some of the tools that we use through the spiritual discussions for non-religious. And then also another tool that we use is called creative evangelism. I mentioned it earlier, is when we take arts like painting, spoken word, music, different things like that, universal languages that everybody understands, and then we use that to present the gospel as well. And it's really beautiful to see how it can play out. For instance, there's a tool that we use called the Greatest Masterpiece. And it's just a sign that you wear around. It has like a thing to hold on your neck, and it's a sign, and it says Greatest Masterpiece. It looks absolutely just beautiful. And you'll walk up to an individual and you'll say, hey, I've got the greatest masterpiece right here, right underneath this flap. Would you like to know what it is? Would you like to guess at what it might be? And you get all kind of guesses. Oh, it's a picture of Mona Lisa. It's the Louvre. It's this, it's that. Okay, do you really want to know? Yeah, I'd love to know. You lift it up and it's a mirror. Absolutely beautiful to see body language and what people do. We've had people, when we've gone down to the University of Minnesota, that will cry when they see it, because it's probably the first time they've ever heard being called a masterpiece. And it allows an inlet into the heart then to speak the truth of who God says they are. You know, so that's just a couple of those tools that we use. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the training we provide. So that's the kind of training that, you know, we do. We go provide. We do it ourselves, because how can you train someone in something that you don't actually live out yourself, right? Yeah.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about when you go on a mission trip, how you deal with the barriers of language and also culture?
Yeah, those are really good questions. How to deal with the barriers of language and culture on mission trips. Something that's actually really wonderful about Steiger and what we do as an international missions organization is we are just that. So many times when we take teams, we take international from all over the world, and we desire to see someone actually in that city where we go and do that work that we know that knows the culture and knows the language of the people. And we do pre-training beforehand. So we don't just go into a situation just going, okay, well, God's going to show us everything, because his word says we are supposed to use wisdom as well, right? So then we have those times where we do training so we can research and learn about the culture, have Zoom calls with people that are already in the culture, because we're active all over the world. And so you'll begin to see an understanding of what it is to then step into a scene, step into a place we've never been before. But something that is really, really interesting is that the global youth culture in our world today, those that we talk about between the ages of 17 and 35, there's so much similarity. There's so many things that are tying them all together. So you'll see the same kind of mannerisms, the same kind of attitude, the same kind of just like, I'm not so sure, a little bit, critical or a little bit about the gospel. You'll see that no matter if we're, in Africa or we're in Europe or we're in, no matter Asia, doesn't matter, even here on the soil, right here in the Twin Cities, going out and being the hands and feet of Jesus. It's the same exact culture. As far as the language is concerned, again, we will use interpreters, if we need to use interpreters. But you'd be surprised how many different countries where you can go to where a lot of people do speak English. It's great. Yeah. Was that okay? You're welcome. Absolutely. Yeah.
Could you share with us a little bit with Steiger and what you personally perhaps are using in regards to social media?
Mm-hmm. Could you say that again, what Steiger is, and then what was the second thing?
And you yourself personally in your ministry are doing in regards to using social media?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How are you using that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So in regards to the advancement of technology now and the availability of social media, we have pages that are available through Steiger. We have our international page that's available. We also on Facebook, and then we also use Instagram. And those are really two great tools to use, especially for the global youth culture. I mean, social media is just like, people spend hours and hours and hours and hours. It's almost like sucking the life away, But thankfully, we can use that as a tool to preach the gospel. And so we will post on there a lot of different thought-provoking questions. We'll post about testimonies of what we have seen happen. We'll use stories of individuals that we've met during an outreach, whether that's a creative outreach or whether it's a bold proclamation through some of our music and artistry that we have. And we'll share those stories about an individual who said, and you can find it on our website too, steiger.org. You can see a lot of things there on steiger.org. And then right now too, in the ministry that God has given me as a missionary, then starting also a missions nonprofit. I don't have a presence yet on social media, but that's my hope. Because when you see somebody doing something right, then you want to use that too. And there's something powerful about testimony and a story of someone who said, I don't even know why I came. We've had this happen so many times. We have a band in Steiger called No Longer Music, and they do shows literally all over the world. And you'll hear stories about people who say, I don't know why I came out here tonight. I don't know why I wanted to be with my friends, but I thought, why not? And then they see the proclamation of the gospel in such a profound way that their heart is changed, and they say, Jesus touched me tonight, and now I want to follow him. And so that is expressed on social media a lot through our stories. We have a lot of videos. We have a YouTube channel. There's a podcast. There's all those different things that are part of who we are as Steiger. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was asked a question earlier, and it was, Serena, how do you see the vision that God has given you in your time with Steiger, and now God is birthing Black Fire out of you with such a unique vision to see young men and women of color come into the mission field? How do you see that playing out also here on the U.S. soil? And so to help break that down a little bit, I want to share a little bit more about how I really envision God using that part of me. I showed a picture earlier of a group of East African young adults that we did some training with. That is exactly the same heart that I have, again, that Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth. So whether I am with young adults and youth here in the Twin Cities in the inner city, or whether I'm going to be speaking at a missions conference in Dallas at the end of March, or whether I'm going then in April overseas to South Africa, to Togo, that's my heart, is to seek and discover those young men and women that do feel called to the mission field, that maybe have never been given that opportunity and just need someone to look at them that looks like them and says, I believe in you. I had somebody say that to me, several people say, I believe in you. And that's the unlocking key, you know? So, yeah.